G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by SpaceTomato and Algared. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Tracking well. I'm tracking
Yeah.
well.
I see what you did there. All right, so today's episode is actually brought to you by Tobii Eye Tracking. They were kind enough to provide me and Algared with review units of this. I know SpaceTomato brought his own, but they also gave you one to give away too, didn't they? So yeah, if you
Yeah.
want to get a discount, you can use Inforunners code for a 5% discount at checkout. All right, so yeah, we all got review copies of a Tobii Eye Tracker, and this whole video is going to be about that: the pros, the cons, the weaknesses, the pluses, the future potential, everything. We're going to go everything in detail, and I think where we're going to kick it off is the cost. I think that is probably going to be one of the prime concerns for most people. Um,
Mhm.
what's your thoughts there, Algrid?
Well, my thought was when I first heard about it and checked out the cost of the Tobii Eye Tracker and going on what I was hearing people say, I was thinking, man, this is super expensive. Like for an Australian, it worked out about 350 Australian dollars.
Mm,
That's a lot of moolah to put out for
mm,
a little device that does head tracking or that. And everyone was saying that TrackIR was a lot cheaper.
mm.
Um, I was really surprised when I actually went in and did the pricing. Because I thought, "Oh, I'll get a TrackIR because it's cheap and I'll try them both."
Mm,
But the TrackIR in Australia is $430, or the
yeah.
cheapest I've found is 369. It's still more expensive than the Tobii Eye Tracker. Um, most prices for the TrackIR are 430, 419.
Mm.
The Tobii Eye Tracker 5, $350 direct from the manufacturer.
Now, for you, Space Tomato, that's the opposite, yeah? So we're actually kind of
Yeah.
opposite down here compared to you.
Yeah, back in America, it is the TrackIR is the cheaper alternative, and that's what a lot of people that's their argument for getting that over the eye tracker, because the eye tracker is, not to get too much into further details, but it's kind of the package, whereas TrackIR is a little more modular, it's a little more setup, takes up a
Mm,
little more space. So
mm,
it's interesting that it's cheaper over there for you guys.
mm. We don't often
Like I
get
said, I was
perks.
surprised. I was
Yeah.
really surprised. Everyone I'd been hearing was saying it was cheaper, and the track IR was cheaper. And when I actually checked it out, it was no, it's not. It's actually at the cheapest price that I found. It was $16. The track IR was 16. Sorry, the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 was $16 cheaper. But in most normal case, it was like $80 cheaper, and it was like
Mm.
there was no competition in that point.
Um,
Mm.
I think I'm going to move on to delivery now. Like, it actually came really quickly, which is
Yeah,
I live in one of the most remote places on Earth. So the fact that it got here, how long was it for you, Algred? I was about a day behind you, wasn't I? So how long was
I
it for
think you were
you?
2 days behind me.
Oh,
It was
was I?
about from the time they told me, it was about 3 or 4 days. I was surprised. It was really quick.
Yeah, I think I was either a day or 2 days, as you said, behind you. But I am on one of the most remote places on Earth. Like literally, the next stop after me is Antarctica. So
That's right. We
yeah,
he's in Tasmania. We usually leave it off the map at that far south.
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
actually, yeah, I was pretty far out of the way too. It was really hard to get to me. I was about 40 miles or so away from San Francisco.
I thought you were going to
But
say you're in
but
Turkey there for a minute, but yeah, okay.
no, I got it when I was in America, and actually, I had the same experience. It was very, very fast. I ordered it, I think, the day after Christmas,
Mm,
and they said I think it was going to get there after New Year's. I was like, this makes complete sense.
mm,
It's
Yeah.
super busy right now. They probably got their hands full, and like, give them a break. It
mm.
got there in like 2 days, like on the 28th, I think,
Yeah.
and I was blown away.
And here in
Yeah,
Australia,
that was a really good first impression.
I don't know what it's like for you over there in San Francisco, but usually straight after Christmas is chock a block because they've got that backlog of Christmas stuff. So to get
Yeah.
it in
Mhm.
that amount of time is super surprising. All right, let's move
Yeah.
on to the unboxing experience because I think Algren and I were both surprised, and I know you were surprised, like because you kind of talked about this in your review. And by the way, if you do want to see Space Tomatoes review, I'll have it linked in the description below
Mm.
because his is obviously a lot more visual than what we're gonna do. But it's just interesting because you're gonna get three perspectives here today, not just one or two, so to speak. You can get three. So, Algrid, tell me your thoughts on the unboxing experience for you.
I was really impressed. I like the packaging. The packaging itself, I was surprised by the box. The box, oh yes, the box comes out, but it was really well presented. It comes with two little metal clips for putting on your monitor, so you could put it on a laptop and a flat screen monitor. It came with the flexi mount for using on a curved screen monitor. It comes with a really nice, slick looking um, container. The
Mm,
thing that I was really frustrated with initially was the shortness of the cord. It's only the natural cord is only 60 centimeters, but then it's got a 100 centimeter or 3 foot cord extension.
mm.
So those concerns I had just went out the window with that extension cord. But I really like the package, the way it was presented.
Yeah, it's definitely got a premium feel when you open it.
Oh, definitely,
Um,
definitely.
and I guess this moves on to my next point a bit too, is the construction. The It's just got this really slick. It's made out of metal,
Mm,
and it's got this kind of graphite coloring to it, and it's just, I don't know. Like normally you buy a lot of stuff these days and they're just plastic. It doesn't. It feels well constructed. There's a solidness to it and a
mm.
weightiness, almost like when you pick up like an iPhone or over a plastic phone. It's just got this. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a certain weight to it.
It's got that sense of quality. That's probably the best way to look at it. You look at the
Yeah.
construction and go, "This is quality."
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
It's there is a in terms of the packaging, there's definitely I don't know if they actually did this, but you can feel some inspiration from the what think is the gold standard of packaging
Yeah,
in the last decade, which is smartphones. I
Mm.
feel like there's a lot of
yeah,
similarities there.
Actually,
And
it
the
does. Mm.
construction, like you said, is very high quality. It actually I think because a lot of people are hearing about eye tracking for the first time, you kind of think, okay, this sounds like a new technology. It's in its infancy. It's probably a little experimental. Maybe the products are a little beta feeling, but this feels like a finished, mature
yeah.
product. It feels like it was made for consumers and it's high quality, like you said. Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
you see, also don't think that the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 is the first edition we ever saw of this. The very first eye tracking system that came out was the Steel Series eye tracker game analysis tool, which basically used Tobii eye tracking as its system.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
And
and then you've had the eye tracker 4, and now you've got the eye tracker 5. So this is a developed,
and
well
They've been working
run,
on this stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
previous versions of the Toby actually were made out of plastic, but you had a really good point to why you think it's made out of metal too, Algared. Do you want to talk
yeah.
about that briefly?
Look, not only does the metal give it strength and durability, but the fact that it's aluminium and it gives it that ability to be slimline. Where if you and strength, whereas if you go with plastic and try to go the same strength, it's going to be bulkier and lose that slimness.
Mm.
I really like the slimness of it. I really like the way it fits perfectly under my monitor. I've got my Stream Deck mounted underneath. Literally, for me, the Stream Deck fits perfectly under there. Um, it's ideal. It really does fit nicely
And then
in terms of
I
that
think
setup.
we're gonna get into some of our first negatives. For me, um, I had to. So we're getting onto the kind of setup here. So the way I actually had to set it up was because I've got large 32-inch screens, I don't think I'm in the normal range of people for this monitor. So when I attached it to the bottom of my monitor, I actually had to sit down like this to get it to recognize my eyes. Um, and so I had to use the mount and angle it, but the mount for me was a little bit flimsy. Um, it was also parked directly in the on-off button for my whole monitor, and
Yeah.
it also got in way of the Stream Deck. Now that's a streamer specific problem, but there may be other people. Like for example, someone might use a tablet for Star Citizen to do their controls, or a Stream Deck to do their controls, and it may be in the way for them. And it also depends on what monitor you have. I had the large monitors, so moving on to the setup, so to speak, I had a lot of trouble. I even tried putting it on the top of my monitor, and it didn't work there either. So I really struggled, um, and I think my probably biggest weakness of this product is the mount. I would have liked to have seen some more options for pivoting the product so it could adjust up for. But I think I'm in a more
Because
niche area.
because you also because you and you're using 32 screen monitors, but
Mm,
I'm using 35, but yours is different from mine because you're using yours as a portrait
Mine is like
rather
a
than a landscape
standard.
setup, isn't it?
Mine's a standard aspect ratio. Algared's is an ultra wide, so his is almost like 2 monitors wide, where mine is just 1 monitor wide. But as I said, it's
You've got
32
more
inches.
height.
Yeah, most monitors are around 27 inches, so mine's an extra 5 inches of diagonal height, so that's probably an extra 2 or 3 inches, and it's just enough to throw the whole thing completely out of whack.
Yep.
And I also sit fairly close forward on my monitor as well.
And so because of that, that meant the flat screen mount that they have really didn't work for you. You had to use the flexi mount to try and get that eye angle, didn't you?
to tilt it up, yeah.
Um,
I was kind of surprised though, because my eye level to my monitor was probably in the top fifth, the top 20% of my monitor. So I was really surprised it didn't work off the top of my monitor.
yeah.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
I think that's a decent suggestion. The fact that a lot of times when you're setting up your computer, you're lining up at the top of your monitor.
Hmm.
I guess they would try to avoid it getting in the way of webcams, but that is a
Yeah.
decent idea for something in the future.
Well,
But
my kind of suggestion there is, if in software you can say, look, I've got this thing completely off to the left-hand side of the monitor, and you pick, because you can, when you're setting it up, you've got these, but you can actually on the screen position where you've attached it to the side of your monitor. If you can literally do
hmm
it completely off to an obscure area, that just makes it a lot more customizable to individual unique setups. So even if it means that you have to turn the entire sensor upside down, so it's reading downwards instead of reading upwards, that would be a really good possibility. But again, I just had trouble, and I'm going to be honest. Of the people I've talked to, not many people did have trouble, so I just got very
Yeah.
unlucky.
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't have
And
any trouble with setup. I lost a piece of Velcro, so the mount comes with Velcro to stick it to your computer, and I don't
Same.
think there were extras, if I recall,
no.
but I lost one of them and had to kind of go out and buy some extra Velcro, and
Yeah.
that was a little frustrating. But when it comes to a flat screen setup with no mount or anything, it's super super easy, very quick.
Mm.
And that'd be something to be really nice to. I know we're going into one of the future improvements, but that'd be something to add into the pack. Would be a couple of Velcro tabs, because I know one of the things Tobii also said in terms of the Velcro tabs is that under extreme heat, the stickiness will actually lose adhesion, and then can cause it to drop from the monitor. And so you do want to be able to replace those. Um,
Yeah.
I also don't like the flexi mount. To me, that is, whereas everything in the pack says quality and
Mm.
perfect construction, for me, the flexi mount was like, oh, it's flimsy plastic.
Yeah. It would.
And it,
And to kind of add on what you're saying, Algared, I think the one thing is, for a premium product, that's the one thing that didn't feel premium in the whole, or
yeah,
thought through. And if it were for the cost, I would have liked to have seen a mount that attaches and it's got a pivot on it, so you can pivot it. And it would have been like, you've got magnets in the back of the Tobii. Why not just have something that magnets to the back and then that magnets to the monitor? I think that would be really cool. And I know I see they're trying to make a mount that's universal, and that's why they've made it lightweight and plastic, and that does make a lot of sense. But again, when you're dealing with, as Tomato said, I had exactly the same problem where the Velcro wore out and it just didn't work. And a lot of that was due to the fact that I was reaching under it to press the button to
yeah.
turn my monitor on or off, or knocking it with the Stream Deck when I was moving the Stream Deck backwards and forwards.
And that's the other thing that I did find is, when I mount the flexi mount on my monitor, because I have a curved screen monitor, I need to use the flexi mount. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And if I want to access the controls on my monitor, I have to pull the flexi mount off again. So that for me is one of those issues. But
I had a
for a flat screen monitor, you do have the little metal strips which do stick onto the bevel of the monitor.
I've just had a weird
And
visual, Algared, where if you put it on top of your monitor, you could literally lay it between the 2 points of the curve and you'll be totally fine. So you got the curved monitor and you just branch from one side to the other. But anyway, I
Just put it on
digress.
top.
Yeah.
then it would screw up with my camera, so that's no good. Which is another reason why the TrackIR is,
Mm.
in my opinion, doesn't match up to the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, because its eye tracking system is up, or head tracking system sits on top of the monitor, which for me screws up my camera settings. So.
Yeah. So
And that's a point a lot of people ask about. Just if we never get back to that, this doesn't double as a webcam. It doesn't actually have a camera in it that you can use with your computer,
No.
which a lot of people ask me about.
mm.
No.
Yeah, go Algared.
But I was going to say, but one of the things I really do like about it is it does have the facial recognition software in it, so you can use it to, and I love this. I use it all the time now for the Windows Hello.
Mm,
Mm.
It will actually say, "Oh yeah, it's you."
mm.
So it's really great for that.
So no passwords. You can just like log out and sit down, and
Yeah,
it just logs
I
you in.
log out, I come in, turn on the computer,
Okay.
Toby's on, and it goes, "Oh yeah, it's you." Bang.
I'm gonna be
It's great.
gonna,
Um,
gonna be honest. I did not test it for that, so that's
I,
interesting.
I use it all the time. It is one of the features I've actually come to really like. Same with the you can use it when you're in the Apple's menu to actually help pick apps. You can use the eye tracking to pick the apps for that, and you can use it to actually assist mouse movement. So you can actually glance the area, click your mouse, and the mouse pointer appears at that point.
I can
Um,
never get that to work for me naturally.
Mm,
I've got it working. I did actually deactivate that because I found I was often looking and moving the mouse rather than clicking, so I was actually going beyond where I wanted to go.
mm.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
happened to me.
So that
Yeah.
um,
so that kind of point there, as we move into Star Citizen and talk about Star Citizen, that's one of the things I kept doing. Like my eyes were, if I just wanted to look at something, everything would be going like I'm like I just want to look at that. Don't move there. So I had a
yeah,
little. There is a learning curve to this, essentially.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but the fact that you can use it for Windows Hello, the fact that you can use it for helping pick apps on Windows, the fact that you can use it for helping mouse movement, for me, one of the biggest advantages this has over any other head tracking system that's out there is the fact that the eye tracking is really helpful for anyone who has limited dexterity.
Mm,
It
Right.
can
100%.
really be an assistance.
I
Um,
could definitely see it giving a lot of accessibility to people.
yeah, so it certainly gives greater access to people who might be otherwise limited. And
Mm,
a head tracker, TrackIR can't do that. It
mm,
won't do that.
Mhm.
And so just in this just in this bit, even before we get into looking at Star Citizen, the Tobii Eye Tracker is really, really, really good in
mm,
just opening up access.
mm. Before we move into Star Citizen, just real quickly, then, I know you went and did a little bit of looking into the difference between this and TrackIR, and you talked to me a lot about how one of the reasons you liked this was just there was nothing sitting in your head. So
Yeah,
do you just want to talk about that a little bit before we move into Star Citizen?
yeah. Well, if you look at a TrackIR system, you've got the tracker that sits on your or the sensor that sits on top of the monitor, and then you've got your infrared icon things on the headpiece that attaches to a cap or your earphones. I don't want anything on my head. I'm in Australia where I often play or record. Can in summer can get really hot. It gets really really uncomfortable. Um, so not having to have anything on the head is great freedom.
Mm,
The track IR down the bottom is sorry, the Tobii eye tracker attached to the bottom of the monitor gives a huge advantage. Not only is it solidly constructed, because it's attached to my monitor, I'm not moving it. And so, whereas I've got the system on the head, I take my headphones off, I hang them up, I move them aside. The chances of those getting damaged or over time increases.
mm,
And when I looked at and I've got to be honest, when I looked at the track IR and looked at, there were times we looked at acquiring it. I know we were looking at one time acquiring it secondhand, and we
mm,
looked at it and we went, "Gee, that looks flimsy. That looks
mm.
crap."
Mhm.
Um, Totally different to what Tobii Eye Tracker 5 looks like.
Yeah.
And I don't need a second device on the head. It's a single device, and that's what makes it better than
Mm,
the others as well. Rather than having 2 units, it's 1 unit.
mm. So SpaceTomato, I know you do a lot of cinematics and stuff. Do you use the TrackIR for a lot of your cinematics for those smooth shots? Are you using head tracking or are you using eye tracking when you're doing your camera work? Like
It's
how do you use that? Because I know you were telling me you were using it for those cinematic shots.
yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. I would say I use my eyes more than my head, because I have this weird, I have this weird thing. I
Oh,
guess
sorry.
like it's one of those things where I try to keep my head still to
Yeah.
not move the camera, and then I just start like shaking my head, and I'm like, oh crap. so I
You
so I
you're like
mostly use
me.
my
You're
eyes.
like
Yeah.
me, aren't you? You started
Minis,
laughing 'cause you were
minis.
starting to think what I was saying earlier, weren't you?
Yeah, you focus too much on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do use it for the cinematic shots. I haven't used it since I've been back because I actually misplaced them out when I moved
Mm.
from America back to Turkey. But uh, I use it a lot, and it makes the shots feel much more natural. They look like they're out of an actual, like somebody's actually filming something. Whereas usually the shots that I take in Star Citizen look like they're on a rail all the time. And
Mm.
sometimes you just want that more natural motion look. So that for people who are trying to make YouTube videos or do streams or just create any sort of content in a game that allows for the eye tracking, this will put your content above other people's. If
Yep.
you utilize it, this will make your content stand out.
And
Mm.
and that'd be the same for any head tracking, isn't
Mm.
it?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Yeah.
just that
Hmm.
ability. But
Mm.
what
Yeah.
makes the Tobii Eye Tracker better than those is the fact that you can actually reduce the head movement and just
Right.
focus on the eye movement.
Yeah.
And that again just raises that bar. It is one of those things that I was blown away by the fact that I could actually reduce the head movement down and just use the eye movement.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pretty sure you don't, and I know I don't, but Algared, you sometimes wear glasses. How did
Yep,
you go with glasses in the Tobii Eye Tracker?
no problem.
Not at all. Okay.
Because the way the Tobii Eye Tracker works is you actually set up different views and you can actually adjust it so it works with glasses, no problem. Works without glasses, no problem. You can make it so it's adjusting to your setup just by doing more, just by getting it to check you out.
So unlike
I know
Fo
I'm waffling.
no, no, I was gonna say unlike FOIP, it doesn't have problems with beards and stuff because obviously it's
No,
just the eye
no, no,
area. Unless you've
no.
got really long eyelashes, and then you're in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah.
Unless they're hanging out
Sometimes
or
I like to
bangs that cover your
curl
eyes,
them
you don't
down
want to.
in
Yeah.
my eyes. Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
So it was really. I had no problem.
So let's move on to the crux of this then. Let's get into Star Citizen because I've got I'm going to be open and upfront. I had a lot of problems with this tracker, and I'm not the most patient man, right? This is a highly configurable unit, and I'll also say in the time that we used it, more options were actually added into Star Citizen while we were using it. Like they added a lot more settings and stuff like that. Um, but I actually think my problem with it and Star Citizen is not the eye tracker. I actually think it's Star Citizen. I don't think Star Citizen is fully ready for this game, for this hardware, because it's still a game that's in development. And a lot of the controls, even kind of like the way they were worded, they're a little bit convoluted and confusing. Do you get what I'm trying to say, SpaceTomato? Because
Yeah,
I
they're a little
actually
clunky too.
I had to drag you in to get you to help me because I was that confused.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and you went it through it with me, but yeah, you tell me your thoughts on like how it's integrated into the menus and stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get too much into a Star Citizen critique, but I think you're right that the settings, how they're presented, are a big part of why it's a little bit more difficult to use. There's another piece of software that comes with the eye tracker that for most games allows you to do all the settings in one place, and
Mm,
it saves those settings and it stores them outside of the game so they don't get reset, and it has a custom user interface so it makes it easier to use, but that's not available for Star Citizen, so you have to go in the game and do it. And like you said, the settings, like many other parts of the game, are in development. So since
mm.
they're not set in stone, they're very much kind of unfinished. And so they're a little difficult to maneuver around to navigate and figure out what you need to do and what is going to help you and how to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Algrid, how are your thoughts on the actual in-game setup? Because the setup
Yeah,
process for the unit itself is very easy. I just found Star Citizen was like another level again. So can you
it,
give me your
it
thoughts?
certainly was. When one of the things I discovered when I first used the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 is the fact that I have bobblehead. Um, and I had it on with the normal settings, and it was almost impossible to use because every slight movement of my head, the monitor was, the view was just changing
Mm,
radically. If you try and use Tobii Eye Tracker, and I imagine any head tracking device, you're going to have bobblehead unless you
mm,
go into the settings and adjust it. And
mm,
so, apart from going to the settings, the general settings, you have to go into the specific settings for for the device you're using. I found with the Tobii Eye Tracker, the really beautiful thing was the fact that I could reduce the head tracking notion right down, which reduced bobblehead,
Hmm.
and just focused on the eye movement. And that was a huge advantage for me.
And
Um,
you can kind of blend somewhere between the two, can't you?
yeah, and you
Yeah.
can blend between the two. You can have 10%, whatever it is, the
And
difference.
and that's what you were getting at before with your cinematic shots, weren't you? Space. You were,
Yeah,
yeah.
using a little more of my eyes than my head.
Mm.
And Algared, did you find that was pretty straightforward to figure out in Star Citizen?
Once I worked it out, yeah. Um, I did find that when I had an update, um, I came back into the computer and I contacted you the other week and says, "Hey, look, Tobii Eye Tracker stopped working. I've got it working in third person again, but I can't work out why I can't get it working in the first person." And it was because in the settings, one of the buttons, one of the switches in the general had switched across and was no longer record. I think it was in the first person out of the pilot's seat or something like that. It was, and you need to make sure the right settings are done. Otherwise, the head tracking device just doesn't work in that system.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I really like the eye tracking notion of it. It's not eye tracking the characters where the character's eyes are looking. It's the eye tracking in Star Citizen is actually moving the character's head. So your eyes move, your character's head moves, not
Mm.
the eyes. So it's working in the same way the head tracking works. But the fact that you can reduce the head tracking down so it's not watching bobblehead but watching the eyes, that makes it so much better than any other system. Certainly for anyone who's like me with bobblehead.
So SpaceTomato, I can't, and I'll get this from you too, Algrid, but SpaceTomato, can you give me like your primary benefits for Tobii Eye Tracker in Star Citizen?
The
And is
the
it
the time that I notice it the most when I'm playing Star Citizen, which is doing something I don't do that often, is when I'm dogfighting.
mm,
Because like when we were talking about this earlier, you were saying that you can hold the F button to look to the side of your ship when you're flying, but when both of your hands are very busy
Mm.
tracking another opponent, trying to land some shots on them, and you maybe have somebody off to your left, right, above you, or even that person gets behind you and you need to get another look at them. This makes it incredibly easy. And
Yeah.
with the head tracker, when it feels really unnatural that you're turning your whole head but you're still looking at the screen over here
mm.
just so you can get the view to shift, now I'm just simply looking this way and my screen shifts and I can see
Yeah.
there's that person, I need to turn that way to land shots
And
on.
that's about configuring that dead zone. So
Yeah.
like it is kind of a standard view, and then after a certain point of you're just turning, it just kind of knows to look like 90 degrees. So it's just
Hmm.
playing with it until you get to that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And as I said,
Yeah.
unlike well you said really, but I agree with you. They kind of need to have more of that outer game setup than in an in-game setup, so it's more easily accessible. Because I think that's the real barrier of
Yeah.
entry in the Star Citizen at the moment, is that it's a game in development. I think, like, if after we hear what about Algorithms, we'll move on to future potential. But I think a future potential of this is very bright. Algorithm, your primary benefit of
On
this in Star Citizen
Yeah, I think I'd have to mirror a bit what SpaceTomato says. I tend not to do much space
fighting.
combat, so dog fighting,
Yeah,
I suck at it, so I usually avoid it. But certainly when I'm flying the ship, just being able to look around rather than turn the whole head, just be able to glance and have the same effect is really huge. But what I really like is being able to just take in the vista.
yeah.
And rather than move the whole character or move the mouse to get the vista, I can just move the eyes and I can get that natural flow. A bit like you were saying with your cinematics. It
Yeah.
really does give that real. Um,
And that for me is my primary point. Is
the,
the and I know
the
we kind of cringe at this, but the immersion, it really is a lot more immersive.
yeah,
Using it, and it's a lot more natural, like just looking around with your head as
yeah.
opposed to holding keys and moving mouses and stuff like that. For
And
me,
to pick up what Base Tomato said earlier, it really is VR light. Would be probably an easy way to describe it, isn't it?
yeah.
You don't have the goggles on, but it is giving you that ability to kind of get that sense
Yeah.
of
It
being able
gives
to
you that
take
kind
things
of
in.
feeling.
Mm.
It's like a
Um,
it's like a nice taste.
Mm.
yeah,
S-
and it really and that is. I've got to be honest. This was the first time I've used a head tracking, eye tracking device, And
Same here.
for me, it was
Likewise.
overall really, really positive.
Mm.
There were teething problems, and like with any peripheral device, you've got to adjust it to you. A setting Execute likes might be a setting that I can't stand.
Yeah,
Setting that SpaceTomato likes might be a setting I don't
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
and vice versa.
So moving on to the future potential, I think the potential for this is really, really, really positive. I still feel that it obviously has to be more customizable to more PCs, and I will freely admit I'm probably in a super niche area having big monitors like that. Um,
Mhm.
but if they can get over a few to me they seem small. They might not be small. They might be really large. But if they can get over a few of those hurdles, excuse me, a few of those potentials are really bright, and making the customizations a little bit more accessible. And again, as Star Citizen gets more polished, and to that point, I think that this could be a really not just pivotal tool, but a really naturally and easy to access tool. And I think that is a really key thing, making it
Yeah.
naturally accessible. So your
Mhm.
thought, your oh, you go first, then Aaron.
Okay.
Future potential,
Well,
then.
even before I talk about the future benefits, one of the other things I did like, as a streamer
Mm,
or as someone who does a bit of streaming, is the Ghost, the Tobii Ghost, so that you could actually set it up so you can actually see. It shows you a little ball where you're looking at. So I could actually set it up and do a video, and my audience, if I'm streaming live, could actually turn it on and see where I'm actually looking with my eyes, or turn
mm.
it off and not see where I'm looking with my eyes. Um, and so it just adds to that immersiveness. Certainly when we're doing our ship reviews and walking around a ship, or walking around uh, the
Yep.
Intergalactic Expo, or Fleet Week, and we're looking at the ships, it really is an advantage where we can say, "Oh, look at this feature," and if it's turned on, people can
Mm.
actually see, "This is the feature I'm looking at. This thing here," and that is certainly adds that interaction between the streamer and the audience,
If you
and vice
can
versa.
if you can look around and there's a way just to press a button, so like I'm looking at the flight console and I want to turn the ship on,
Yep.
where you can just look and press the F key and it instantly turns it on. When it gets to that point, whoa, then we're
And
talking
and
some
and I think
immersion.
look, I think that in terms of where I think it's going, I think that is where ultimately I would love to see this go, where you've
Mm.
got a combination of a head tracking plus the eye tracking, whereas you look at something and you've got that ghost type of technology. But so I look at the highlighted item, I look at the feature that could be highlighted, and it highlights it so I can then press F. That will be really huge, and it will further go down that line of making the Tobii Eye Tracker open up the game for people who are less dexterous.
Future potential for you, SpaceTomato.
Well, you guys brought up a couple points that I'm not gonna go on a tangent on them, but I will bring them up. Algared, you mentioned the streaming thing. One thing I'm not sure how this could be fixed, but I think almost every streamer probably recognizes this as being a bit of a shortcoming, is that when you are trying to interact with your chat, you're
Yep.
looking off screen
Yep.
and your camera goes with you. Now,
Yeah.
I have a hotkey on my mouse. It's like one of the ones that's right under my thumb where I can turn it off, look over, do something, turn it back on. But obviously, that's an extra step every time.
Mm.
So
Yep.
that's something that I don't know how it could be fixed, but it would be
No.
nice. And another thing that I forgot to mention that I actually use this for kind of rarely, but sometimes I do actually jump into shooters and I play a little bit more competitively. I play Halo a lot and do a lot to try and improve in there. And this is phenomenal for learning where you mess up.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can turn on the overlay for yourself so that you can record your screen and then look back at what you were doing and where you looked when something happens. And most of the time, it doesn't really help, but every once in a while, you'll see something and you'll be like, that was really dumb.
Yeah.
So
I can think about that next time.
So the first
Yep.
one I would call that an off-screen dead zone. It actually knows that you're looking off the screen and just recenters it, or keeps it
That's
on,
back.
the extreme edge of the screen, rather than, yeah, I don't know. You might be able to, maybe that's an option you turn off and on. So off-screen dead zone,
Yeah.
you turn it off and it basically just recenters itself. So
Yep.
yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
One of
And
the
then,
one of Sorry, go on.
well,
Finish your point.
so in terms of future potential, I think that I think it probably already is on its way to being an industry standard
Mm.
for a part of interacting with our computers that not many people think about. So we have two hands, right? And that's like virtual reality. Your controls are basically your whole body. With a computer, we have two hands. And being able to add in 1/3 way to control what you're doing is huge. I mean, that's raising the potential by however much percentage. I don't know, I'm not going to do the math right now, but
Mm.
it's a big deal. And
Mm.
you can see this in things like even CIG. I don't know if they're using the eye tracker or if they're using a head tracker, but you can see their footage that they put out for their own videos uses this kind of stuff. You could tell with some of the shots. And I think that's a big deal because more and more companies and more people are going to be able to make footage and make videos from video games you couldn't do before because now we have another method of controlling the camera that adds to more cinematic, interesting, and immersive shots.
Let me just say one thing. A very simple way to integrate this with VR headsets is a few years ago Google talked about doing a higher resolution where your eye looks and lower resolutions in your peripheral. Using something like this in a VR headset, you could actually track where you're looking, do that in like 8 or 10K, and then everything else only needs to be in 1080p because and that way you don't have to render everything at 8K, and therefore you can render it more. To you, it's going to look like it's prime because basically, in our peripheral, you can go look in research books. They are nowhere near the clarity, and that's how our eyes work. We have a higher pixel density where we look, and a lower pixel density in our peripheral,
And
and that would be a way to
and
track
you'll
it.
and you'll find that the Tobii eye tracking software is actually being incorporated into the Hive
There you go.
HTC virtual reality visors
5, yeah.
already. So that's
Mm.
currently being done.
Mm.
And so you are currently getting that. And when you're talking Tobii eye tracking, people think, I hadn't heard of it before. And I was thinking, oh, this is newfangled dangled stuff. But they're actually industry leaders.
Mm.
They're used in medical for the eye tracking in medical stuff. They're used in
Yeah,
research
it's true.
for marketing. I was surprised when I actually delved into Tobii and looked at what they did.
Mm.
I was surprised at how much their tracking software is used to analyze. They use it on advertising, so they'll use the eye tracking on advertising, a bit like the Tobii Ghost types thing, where
Mm.
they'll give the customers and they'll get them to look at the advertisement, and it'll track where the people's eyes are looking.
Mm.
Yeah.
Tobii,
Minority Report, baby.
they are world leaders in terms of this technology, and having it incorporated into a software which we can use on a game
Mm.
It's cool.
is
It
Mm.
feels like the
huge.
future, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of cliche to say, but it does feel like you're using some sort of like future technology that's not actually ready for consumers yet, even though it
yeah,
does feel like it's ready when you're using it.
All right,
yeah.
let's start to wrap this up. I want to get recommended improvements for you guys because I think I think we're going to all kind of agree in the same area here. But yeah, Space, I'll let you kick it off. What are the improvements that you would recommend to Tobii? Because we know they're going to watch this video. So what improvements would you recommend to the Tobii?
Well, the whole looking off screen thing obviously is a little difficult, and that's not super important, honestly, in the grand scheme of things and what they're
Agreed.
doing. That's not a big deal, but I would like to see it fixed.
Mm.
The mount, as we've all mentioned, is something that could definitely work a little bit better. This is a weird one actually, and I'm sure the engineering side has a very, very good reason for this, but the cord comes off the side
Mm.
of the
Hmm.
Tobii, and I would really like if it came off the back
Or
because,
the do you mean the bottom?
or yeah, the bottom because you put it on the
Yeah.
front of the monitor. But the
Mm.
the
It
the
pulls that one side
device
down,
itself,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 But also, this device is incredibly well made in that it's stealthy. I mean, besides the
Mm-hmm.
infrared lights, most people don't notice this when it's on your computer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see that cord kind of sticking off the side, it draws your attention.
Yeah.
And
And
something that,
it breaks the visual, doesn't it?
yeah,
You got this really sleek looking device, and then you got this cord sticking out the side.
You could probably put
yeah.
a magnet near where that cable is just to strengthen it on that particular side for weight, and then
Yeah.
it might not be a
Yeah.
problem. But then again,
I never found,
not all monitors have magnetized bars at the bottom either. So
and I never really found that it pulled it off of mine. Really, it was mostly an aesthetic thing for me.
it's slanted sometimes on mine. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
But again, I had some weird issues with my monitors. Now, for me, and I think Algared would probably agree with me, my biggest problem with this was the mount. The mount was the thing that didn't feel as good a quality. Definitely, it had to be lighter to hold stuff. But I actually, even if they didn't put a pivotal mount in the box, they need to think of a way so you can attach it to the frame of your monitor but not underneath it, because there are so many monitors that you need to access underneath, like contrast controls. I've got a whole, everything on mine works on a joystick that's in the dead center,
Yep.
right under where
Mm.
so
I had a computer like that.
Yeah.
I got very unlucky with the placement of the Tobii and stuff like that. And I think also the ability to put it on top of your monitor, especially if you've got a really large, tall monitor. And my final thing that I think I would really like to see is some kind of overlay that comes from Tobii that you can put on your screen to say, I want this to be the dead zone where I look. So you draw like an interface where you draw the squares that say, I want this to be the dead zone, and when I look outside here, it activates. Rather than just using numbers, so you have to go backwards and forwards and tweak stuff, why not make it so you just draw? Because if you can draw it and go, yeah, every time I look outside of here, that'll work. And that just kind of simplifies it. It gives you a visual interface rather than just a tweaking interface, which is numbers, because there's no
That can be
visual
very useful.
no visual representation of where you have to look, where again, if it's also visual, it's more customizable to every monitor that you use. Where I've got a really large monitor, so I'm probably going to have a much larger dead zone than most people. So to me, that made a lot more sense than this tweaking of backwards and forwards and improving by a system of elimination that takes way too long to set up. Everything else is really simplified and integrated. That was the last thing I think you could put in as a visual setup tool. Okay, Algared, your improvements, recommended improvements.
I have a 35 inch ultra wide monitor. The maximum size that the Tobii works with is 27 on. I'd have to get the box out at 1:, and 30 inches at, I think, 27 to 1 to. Again, I can't remember the ratios, but the maximum is 30, right?
Right.
So I've got about 2.5 inches each side, which is dead zone.
So what, Algared, are you asking that you can buy 2 Tobii Eye Trackers, one for each eye on each side of the screen?
Oh, look, that's one of the things I actually also liked about the Tobii Eye Tracker as well. Is you can actually set it to detect both eyes. You can set it to detect left eye or right eye. So,
Algared, are you telling us you're googly-eyed?
No, but people who it's someone who does have a blind in one eye.
That's true.
You're not limited. You can actually set the Tobii Eye Tracker to be the left eye, the right eye, or both. It really is great in that. But that visual setup and being able to say, yeah, this is a dead, even if it showed you this is a dead zone that's on the computer, this is the maximum dead zone you can have, or the maximum view on this computer, would be helpful. The as you said, the mount, I'd love a different mount system. I can understand why you've got on the bottom of the monitor. If that flexi mount could be mounted in the same position that the regular bars would go, that would be fantastic, because I'm like you, all the controls for my monitor are smack bang in the middle. If I want to access them, I've got to pull the Tobii off the Velcro tabs. That weakens the tabs, that weakens the stickiness. It means I'm handling the Tobii device when I don't really need to. The fact that you've got the cord on the side does mean that having the Tobii up level with the bevel monitor on using the flexi mount would work, and that is also why they don't have it at the back. They could have it maybe at the bottom.
Yeah, maybe the bottom.
But it really, for me, that's probably the only real criticism is that mount, and it'd be nice to see a higher quality mount.
There's many places they can take it to, because they could technically split the device into 3, and you could basically put the trackers far off to the side of the monitor. It would mean you have to configure it more, even adding more eye trackers. So what if you could buy 2 additional ones that go on the top of your monitor? So you actually 4 tracking your eyes instead of 2.
Yeah, I think that would be a downgrade to actually splitting it. Because the
Yeah.
real advantage I
Simplicity
find with
is
this over the TrackIR is the fact that it's a single unit. It's a single plug. Um,
what about I did kind of joke before about doubling units up, but imagine in my case where I've got the really tall monitor and your monitor where it's really wide, what if you could buy two? So in your case, you could have two on each side of your monitor, where I could actually have one at the bottom and one at the top, as an example, just to improve the tracking. Do you think that's a valid option potentially? And I know that makes
I
it a lot more expensive, but for those of us that have more elaborate setups, we probably can't afford that.
maybe down the track,
Yeah.
Toby will be able
Yeah, I
to
would
expand on that.
say
But I would say, like, even on my 35-inch ultra wide monitor, when I'm in Star Citizen, I don't need to have I'm not really fussed by that dead zone at the end. I
Mm.
didn't notice it.
You gonna say space?
I was just gonna say that I think it definitely it could benefit from having additional units, but that simplicity of this product, I think, is really important that they stick with it. Now, obviously, the company's growing and they're making more products. I would almost expect that they would have a system that is modular, that you could buy one piece in the future, but
Yeah.
you can always add on a couple extra to get additional benefits. But I'm not sure exactly how they would want to do that.
Mm,
That would get clunky very quickly.
it could.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Your final recommendations, please, Algared.
look, I really like it.
Mm,
And I think if you're looking at getting any head tracking device, certainly if you're in Australia, the Tobii Eye Tracker is the way to go, because you've got the head tracking plus you've got the versatility of the eye tracking. If you're looking at getting a head tracker in general, whether you're in Australia or not, I still think the Tobii Eye Tracker is the way to go, because you're picking up that extra edition of the eye tracking device and game analysis tool, rather than just a head tracker. And I think that is what puts it a cut and, you know, so much better than just a head tracker in itself.
mm. Space, your final recommendation, please.
The execution really sells the product. The simplicity and the compact form, I think, is something that we've touched on in almost every single segment
Mm,
of this talk, and that's really what gets this product onto computers.
mm,
That's what
Yeah,
gets it integrated into laptops that they're doing. That's what gets it into the HTC Vive, like you said, is that they knocked it out of the park in terms of getting a very, very complex encompassing system into something that's really lightweight. So I give it. My opinion is almost completely unchanged from my first review back 5 months ago, I think it
mm,
was, and that is that if you find that you're looking for extra peripherals to make your computing, your gaming experience better, this should be near the top of your list.
mm,
And
yeah,
I'm talking about, things like a stream deck,
mm,
or maybe a mixer for audio. Like, these are things that you don't necessarily need, but they will make the experience better. Eye Tracker fits in that category. You don't need it, but
yeah,
yeah.
this will definitely make gaming using your computer better and more fun. But for people who, are looking at the price and saying, "Hey, it was $30 less, maybe if I waited a little bit longer, I'd say hold off." It's honestly, it's a lot like my recommendation for Star Citizen.
Mm. And that's kind of where I'm going to go with mine. If you're into tweaking and you're comfortable with waiting for development and knowing it's a work in progress, and you want this specifically for Star Citizen, and you're happy to tweak, like if you're happy to tweak your joystick profiles and stuff like that, this is a product you will enjoy. If you are someone that is not prepared to wait for Star Citizen, and you kind of don't come around, and you come around like once every 12 months, then maybe, or there are other space games you play or other games that you can use Toby with, that's fine. But I think for most people, you're going to fall into one or two categories where you either tweak it and use it now, or you wait for it to be refined and more better in the future. And that's kind of where I sit on it. And
mm,
I'm not a tweaker. In fact, I'm very impatient. So for me, I'm probably going to sit on it and wait. But obviously, Algared and SpaceTomato are way more impatient, way more patient than I am. So yeah, but that kind of gives you two different opinions there. Where these guys both like it, I see its potential, but it frustrates me because I don't have the patience, and that's where I started to think about how I could improve it. And the visual overlay thing came into my head, where it would definitely make it much quicker
mm.
to tweak and
A
analyze.
good idea. Yeah.
All right, then. So that's been the Tobii Eye Tracker. If you would like to get one yourself, you can use the code Inforunners at the checkout. I will leave a link in the description below for where you can purchase that from Tobii.
And
And
let me just say before you finish, there's also, if you go to Tobii's Discord, they are always advertising giveaways, contests, ways that you can get the Tobii either on a sale or even for free, sometimes with
Yeah.
other game packages. So I would join their Discord if you're interested in getting
Yeah.
this, and keep an eye on it.
And it's certainly a place to go for support as well. So
Mm.
the avenues for getting support and the avenues for just getting giveaways or finding out more is just huge.
And they do have profiles that they share for other games, so I do think in the given interest of time, I would say share profiles for Star Citizen as well.
Yep.
All right, then. It's been... Algared, do you want to say anything, comments while I'm thinking of it? Is there any
Yeah,
comments you'd
well,
like people to leave? Like, if you have a Tobii Eye Tracker, let us know your thoughts about it too, so we
yeah.
can share those with other people. Anything you'd like to hear from Space, or...
No, I just want to hear what people think of their own. I obviously use mine a lot for content creation, so I live in a little bit of a niche category when it comes to
Agreed.
using this, and I'd like to hear what other people use it for.
And
Yep.
yours, Algared, anything you'd like to hear?
Yeah. Are there any other head bobblers out there? Are there any more bobbleheads?
Googly eyes.
Where if you are a bobblehead, if you haven't tried a head tracking device at all, are you worried? What devices are you using? Again, it is like SpaceTomato said. It's one of those peripheral devices. Will it make your game? Does it improve your gameplay? Yeah. Is it going to make you a better player? Probably not. Do you need it to play the game? No. But does it enhance the game? Yeah.
So this is the first time of review that we've done like this. If there's any other products that you would specifically like to see reviewed for Star Citizen and you'd like us to reach out to, let us know. Did you like this type of review? Did you not like this type of review? Please let us know that in the comments below. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell. If you want to go extra mile on Patreon,
all that stuff.
all that type of stuff. And we will be on Discord, and you can ask us questions about the Tobii and our experience in that on there as well, and all the usual stuff on there as well. All right, then. He's been SpaceTomato. He's been Algared. I was about to say he's Execute. I stuffed that up completely. I'm Execute. He's Algared. He's SpaceTomato. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Take care.